What's going on, fellas? We have Ricardo McBride right here. Ricardo, what did you do today?
I got 4th place at the Stone Mountain Regional with Volcanic FTK.
All right, awesome. You want to go ahead and get down to the profile?
Yeah, let's go right on into it. So the Volcanic portion of this deck is the most significant portion of it. Like, all of these cards are pretty crucial to what it's trying to do, and like, if there's any questions, feel free to ask, but I'm just gonna get right into it. So the main engine piece of the Volcanics is Volcanic Trooper. He has 2 effects, which are both super important. On summon, he searches for a Volcanic card, and as an ignition effect, you can discard a card to give your opponent a bomb token. That second effect is vital for the FTK. So, I mean, yeah, he just does a lot. Following him up, there is 3 Shell. If you've ever played Volcanics before, you know what he does. When he's engraved, you pay 5 to get a copy of himself, and he's important as he's ever been. Followed by 3 Scattershot, who is kind of the worst one of the Volcanics when you draw him, depending on your hand composition, but he is important for another card in the deck that I don't think I would cut, because it solves too many problems, and when you're not doing the FTK, it reinforces your board a lot. Plus, funny enough, the extra 5 when he's sent to grave just helps you get there sometimes. The next, one of the very strong members of the Volcanic package is Rimfire. He has 2 effects that are both once per turn when he hits grave. You can banish him to send a Volcanic monster from your deck to grave, or you can banish a Blaze Accelerator card from your field or grave to place a Blaze Accelerator card face up on your field. He's like incredible. The fact he's basically a 2-for-1. He's just, yeah, he's great. Following up, we have 2 Emperor, who is both an essential part of the FTK, but just like a really good card in general. For those who don't know what he does, he can summon himself from hand or grave by banishing either 3 Pyro monsters from your grave or 1 Blaze Accelerator card from field or grave. On summon, he burns your opponent for 5 for each banished Pyro and sets a Volcanic spell trap. That's the main way you enable your FTK, and then also when he's on field, when you fall short of FTK, he burns your opponent for 5 every time they special. So if you manage to not FTK them, playing into this will usually kill them, which is just as well. And that also plays in the other aspect of this deck where it forces your opponent to end the game. If they don't end the game and you get another turn, you will end the game pretty much every time. The main search target for our Trooper are 3 Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. I'll have to go over this as well because, again, people might not know what it does. It has 2 effects that are soft once per turns. You target a monster your opponent controls and send a level 1 Pyro from your field to grave and destroy it. And you can also, once per turn, special summon a Volcanic monster from your hand. So that's once per copy of this card, which is really good with Rimfire, wherever he wound up. So if you activate one and send a Rimfire, you can get another copy of it to then do that again and then function as another extender for whatever Volcanics you might have in your hand. This card's one of the main pieces you use to break boards, and also a crucial combo piece going first, funny enough, because of Trooper. This is a brick that you have to play to activate it. The card says to activate it, you have to send this from deck to grave. It is a little whack, but sometimes you draw it going second, and it's actually pretty strong because it'll either just, in conjunction with like a Scattershot or a Shell, you can trade for a lot of monsters on board, or people will just like shotgun things to remove it, which is also fine because, I mean, you didn't want to draw it anyway. This is the enabler for your Scattershot, is Reload. It has 2 effects. People might be familiar with it, but in case they aren't, when it's face up on field, you can send a Volcanic from hand to grave to draw a card, and while it's in grave, you can banish it to send a Volcanic monster from your deck to grave. So that does a few things. Like I said, 1, it turns Scattershot into a very strong interruption, but also it insulates your FTK from a few things that would otherwise stop it. And the way I set up the board in this deck, it helps to make sure the FTK is going through. There's almost no non-engine that stops it once you get to it, and this helps with that. And then our only Emperor target is a mission, which is also the key piece of the FTK. It has two effects. One is you target a pyro monster on the field. If it's yours, you burn for half its attack. If it's your opponent's, you burn for all of its attack. And then its second effect lets you summon a volcanic monster from your deck, ignoring summoning conditions. So that's just really good. Like I said, if you don't FTK them, you can make your opponent have to play through 2 of these, or play into 2 of them, which means every time they special, they'll take 5. And on your turn, he's going to be doing an average of 2,000 damage to them. It's usually going to be 25, but they take 25 off this, and then if you have 2 of those on board, that leaves them not very many summons before they die. There's another volcanic trap that I kind of sort of wanted to play that's just a monster negate, basically, for an effect on the field, but I didn't want to put too many bricks in the deck, so I don't have that here. I just played the stuff that enables the FTK, so that's all the volcanic cards. And then followed up, of course, we have a Snake Eye package, which is 3 Diabellstar and 3 Wanted. You just really want to see this, so I maxed out on it, even though it kind of sucks if you draw too many copies of her, but it's better than not seeing her at all usually. Then following up, we have 1 of each of the little roaches, one of the big roach. One of all of them was plenty. I never really wanted any more, because I'd rather be giving my normal summon to Trooper, honestly. And I had way too many times where I drew him as is, so I never wanted 2 of them. But all of these guys are really good. Like, if you've played with these cards or against these cards, you know what they do, and they're the best volcanic support that's ever come out. And these engines bridge really well into each other. Oh, and a nice thing to point out, if people didn't realize, since this sends a level 1 pyro, if you're doing a line and you can get to your Promethean Princess, because this is a fire deck and obviously we're playing Promethean Princess, you can dump one of your Snake Eyes to then bring back off of her and extend from there. So all of those guys are great. And they help you just make a board when you're not FTKing, which didn't happen often. Pretty much every time I went first in that event, I FTK'd, even through like 2 hand traps. Then next you have a Divine Temple. This card's great. Helps you play through things, around things, just gives you extra cards to extend. It also helps you set up OTK lines for when you're going second and you think they might have nib, so then you can kill them after they nib you. And then the 1 original Sinful Spoils, because it's phenomenal, obviously. Then even more engine, we have a small Fire King package. We'll put these guys like this. Just 1 of each of all of these guys, 2 Island and 1 Sanctuary. This could probably go to 1, but you do like opening it because it, you know, it just lets you play through things more. He's probably the worst one. I cited him out a lot, but I felt like 5 was the right count to have. But yeah, you should also know what these cards do. They do the same thing here, except that we play this to destroy off of this, and when this is destroyed, it sends a fire monster from your deck to the grave. So that's another way to make your engines bridge into the volcanic cards. And all of those are really good. I never regretted them. And then even more engine, we have 3 Mseti, 1 Happy, and 2 King Sark. These are just to give the deck another push, because I kind of felt like it needed it. You could probably get away with 1 of this, but it's good to have a second one on like follow-up turns. Yeah, these are just good. People, Zombie Vampire is crazy, which is the only rank 8 in the extra deck. Spoiler warning, I guess, but those guys were awesome. I never regretted having them. Then the main FTK enabler is Greater Inari Fire and Spiritual Fire PHNI. A lot of people don't know what this guy does. He's one of the undefined from deck summons. So he summons by sending a level 1 or level 4 or lower monster and a spellcaster from field to grave. And when he's sent to grave, he adds this from your deck to your hand. Also, on his summon by that effect, you burn your opponent for the attack of a monster they have on your field. And I'll explain how exactly the FTK goes when we get there. But this card just says tribute a fire monster and you deal damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. So basically it's this plus Emperor plus a mission to kill them. Then even more engine, there are 2 Magician Souls. This is just like the random monsters in a Jet Synchron. This is a good pivot send for the Baby Kieran. This is just more access to Diabellstar and also a way to get extra draws, because this deck has a lot of spots where it winds up with random extra spell traps on field. Those are all really good. Was very happy to have them. And then of course the 3 Bonfire, because we're playing a deck full of Pyro monsters. It doesn't just get Snake Eyes, it gets everything in this deck. Then a 1 of Monster Reborn as another random extender. It's also just randomly stronger this format because of fire mirrors basically. Then a 1-for-1 because it's like the best extender you could play with this stuff. And then fire recovery. If people don't know this card, it's basically like a bad monster reborn. You activate it, you target a fire monster in your grave, and you send a card from hand to grave and then special summon that monster. But while it's in grave, you can banish it to target 3 banished fire monsters, or banished or grave fire monsters, shuffle them in deck to draw a card. That's really good in combination with Shell, because it turns 1 copy of Shell into like 5 cards, so that's great. And then the only non-engine in the main deck is 3 triple tactic talons, because everybody else is on hand traps. If you're trying to combo, this will rip their hand trap out of their hand, or if your hand just needs a little more gas, it can draw you cards. Going second, obviously it's really strong into boards. Yeah, that's the main deck, and I was relatively happy with all of it. Like I said, the only thing I'd considered changing is maybe cutting Island to 1 and maybe not playing Avarda at all, but it was all very good. I won like I think 3 die rolls in the event, so I went second a lot and was killing people through their boards. And I guess like I said, I'll explain a little bit of that when we get to it. This is my bomb token.
Real quick, what's your main deck count?
60 double sleeved. So maybe you can make it smaller, but all the cards are really good. If you're at 60, you get to play more good cards, you know? But that aside, we'll go on to the extra deck, which is 15, obviously. Pretty standard fire stuff, really. It's Link Rebo, everybody knows this little guy's great. Anima, which isn't just like a gotcha like the other fire decks we're playing for a while. It's actually part of the combo, because if you recall, Inari Fire Tech Spellcaster is a spellcaster. You have tons of ways to generate level 1 bodies, so that's what he's there for. Then moving on from that, it's IP, Phoenix, which was great. You know, sometimes you draw Flamberge Dragon going second. There's a way to get out of hand and keep playing. Sunlight Wolf, Pit Knight early as like a pivot option for when you're not FTKing. SP, the 2 Charmers, Celine. I don't know why more people don't play this in fire decks, but she was great to try to get into like an early Appaloosa and insulate from hand traps. The obvious Promethean Princess, which I only played 1 of, just because I can't think of anything to cut, because literally all of these cards came up on the day except for this, because like I said, pretty much every time I went first I FTK'd. The Ambler Whale, which I know a lot of people have cut from their decks, but it actually does have cool synergy in this deck because of Trooper. So when you do your princess lines, you'll often make this first, and then you can Trooper to give them a bomb token, and then bring back your princess popping this and the bomb token you gave them, and then this will float into whatever you use to make it, which will be like Sunlight Wolf or something. So you still like net extra bodies overall with it, and then go ahead and get it engraved for later. And it also came up just having big stats, funny enough. But yeah, this guy was solid. The Appaloosa, the Axis Code Talker to just do OTK lines, and the 1 Zombie Vampire as the only rank 8 for our Horus package to try to help it bridge into the other engines. This, like I said, oftentimes you'll do this to try to go for lethal, and if they have nib, you can usually still kill them through it because of how the deck works, because that's your goal when you go second. Your goal when you go second is to put their life points to 0, and that's usually what happens. Even if they still have all the follow-up in the world, it doesn't matter if they die. But before we go to the side real quick, I will explain like what the board the deck is trying to make is primarily. So the main thing you're trying to do when you go first with this is, like I said, FTK. And what that looks like is, at least on the inboard, all that looks like is this. These are like tertiary, but so what happens on your turn is you do a total of 4,000 damage to your opponent, and then during their draw phase, there's an argument you should wait because of a few specific things, but if you do the combo, there's like ways to insulate you from all that. But you do 4,000 to them on your turn. Then in their draw phase, you use this targeting Emperor, that does 1550, and then you use this tributing Emperor, and that does 31. So that's 8650 damage. The additional components of the board that I try to go for, and there's a myriad of ways to do it, and you do it pretty much every time, is I try to set up Appaloosa and SP alongside this to play around like the Nib Imperm combo. So that way when you go to your, because they do technically still get a turn despite it being an FTK. When you try to go to the end phase, if they nib, you chain Appaloosa. And if they Veiler her, you chain SP targeting this, so he'll still be on the field when their turn comes around, because he's the only thing you need to kill them. And then the other part of that is that you're trying to end with this engrave as well for the few things that do stop the FTK. So if they chain like Cosmic or a Book of Moon to this card, this will send Scattershot later in their turn to do the extra 1500 and kill them. But yeah, that's the whole thing. And we'll go to the side. Like I said, I did my FTK pretty much every time I went first, even through multiple hand traps from people. The side was fine. Honestly, I didn't see most of the cards too often. So I did 3 Nib, 3 Ash. These are actually kind of just like concessions for shifter decks, because this deck cannot do anything through shifter. I mean, if you go first, you can do like the Snake Eye line where you have Divine Temple and an IP, which is fine. But you know, you just need a little bit extra sometimes, especially for like Flu, because the only way Flu will beat you is if they have shifter and Featherstorm, and this kind of helps with that because you can stunt their plays a little bit, or if they commit and try to kill you, you can nib them. But I mean, that never happened. I didn't play against any Flu, but I did play against a couple shifter decks, which were some of my only losses. I dropped like 5 games, 2 of which were to shifter, 1 of which was to rivalry, and then 1 to getting Gimmick Puppet Lock, and once to punting against Dynamorphia of all things, which was also one of the other decks that hit me with shifter. But moving on from that, there's 3 Ghost Spell. These are for Labyrinth, and these are also kind of for Labyrinth. I don't think I drew it during the day, but you know, if I did, it would have been cool. Though I think there's a point that one of these should have been swapped for like a Druid Worm, and then maybe these shouldn't be played at all. But yeah, I didn't see most of these cards, so it never mattered. I saw this against one of the shifter decks, which was Dynamorphia, and then I died anyway. 3 Cosmics, these were pretty good, and then the 1 Kurikara, which is just to help break boards when you go second, because you side out a little bit of your engine, obviously, when going second. But yeah, it was fine. It wasn't great. I'm still trying to figure it out and like figure out the siding patterns for it. And that is everything.
You want to make any shout outs before?
Shout out to the people I rode with, my buddy Trevor, for letting me come along, because I didn't plan to go anywhere that weekend, but then our friend Sam messaged me and asked if I wanted to go, and I was like, yeah, why not? So, and a shout out to the people I play with all the time, and then shout out to somebody else who will probably be linked, but I gotta figure that out first.
All right. Well, congratulations.